Hey, this is Andrea.
And this is Amanda.
And you're listening to
Girls Nerd Out. Hey everyone, welcome back. If you have listened to us before, and if you're new, welcome. I am Amanda, and this is my best friend Andrea.
Hey.
And we are very excited to talk to you about Agatha All Along. We will talk to you about episodes 5 and 6. And what did you think about the name of this one?
Oh, I loved it. And it fits because there are some pretty dark parts of this episode.
Yeah, I really do like the fact that they're going with lyrics of the song, but it does fit what goes on in the episode. Because this one is Darkest Hour, Wake Thy Power. So apparently I was wrong about the creepy animals. I thought those were Rio checking on Agatha. No, that's the Salem 7.
That's okay because I totally forgot that they turned into animals, so.
Same. I will say this. The animals were creepy this time, creepier than they were, and the Salem 7 is real creepy.
I love them. I love them so much. But yes, they're creepy, but they're cool looking. Like, I like how they move.
Oh yeah, they move like something from a horror movie, like for real. That's not Marvel Disney. So it's a bit edgy, I would say, for them, and I like it. They should do it more often.
Well, they're here on the road with them because the summoning spell of a green witch, which was Rio, left the door open. And I'm surprised none of them thought of that.
Yeah, you would think that the witches would have remembered that a summoning spell is going to summon whoever.
Considering I only know a little bit about how it ends, this show, I'm wondering if this was on purpose.
Ooh.
I could be wrong, but I'm like, well, either it was an accident, they didn't think about it, which is weird because they're all pretty old and they know what they're doing, or somebody's doing this on purpose. I don't know who, but somebody.
I like that. That's probably true. We get a lot of information in the beginning of this episode. We find out that Agatha killed her original coven by stealing their power. And then Rio quickly sticks up for Agatha and says it was because her own mother tried to have her executed.
Can you imagine?
Oh my God. No, I can't. I cannot. And Jen, okay, you started my dislike of Jen. And now it's just getting worse because Jen calls Rio a creepy lurker. And in my notes, it says Jen sucks.
Well, because she's sticking up for a serial killer, and I'm like you've never killed people, like you've never killed anybody. You can't tell me that. And I'm just like, none of y'all are perfect, right? None of you are. So it just I was like, okay, bye.
She's not likable. I've seen some people on TikTok do some edits of her and just be like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, nah, actually, she's just ego driven and unlikable. So when Agatha murdered her sister witches, she spared their children. And then they describe them as becoming feral, hive-minded, and they're bent on revenge.
I wonder how they became like this, though. That's the question.
Yeah, like why do they look like that?
Yeah.
Is it because they're really old? Maybe?
Well, this one person looks like some of their face is missing. So I'm like, were their parents Targaryens?
You know what? They probably were. So basically, one of the Salem 7 is Viserys Targaryen.
Well, I mean, like by Agatha letting them live, did they get cursed somehow because of that, or what? Like, it's just very curious.
Well, I guess over time they just got so focused on revenge that they just turned into whatever we see now. But it would have been nice to get a little bit of backstory on that, honestly.
I like that Agatha comes in running and she's like, okay, the moral of the story is always finish what you started.
Yeah, and she says mercy is overrated. She's so funny. So they start running to try to get away, but they hear them in every direction. So they're freaking out. And Teen says, basically, why don't we use some brooms? And of course, Lilia is so disgusted because she hates any kind of witch trope. And so they do like a spell, and apparently, in the spell, to get the broom to work, you have to swap with somebody, which I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah. Jen compliments Lilia on her broom, and Lilia goes, "You could have done better."
I liked that, actually. I did.
Of course, they're stealing like stuff. They're taking stuff from the the ground, but from a tree. But she could have done better. I agree.
I mean, that's Jen. She knew that she was going to swap with somebody, so she put in low effort. There you go. One of the Salem Seven ends up attacking Teen, and it happens really fast. And Alice is very protective of him because right before this, she swaps with him. And she's the only one that was willing to swap with him, so he feels like he's really in the coven.
Yes, I love it.
I think she's really sweet. I like her very much, and I think it was really nice of her to think, like, what, here. So he was just so excited. And okay, so they go up on these brooms, and it's actually a cool shot. What did you think?
Are we talking about them getting on the broom or like flying to the moon? Because
Both.
I liked it. The moon was, you know how they talk about like the symbols of witches and them being posted flying past the moon is very Halloweenish looking, but I liked it.
I liked it too. I thought it was really cool. And they're up for just a little bit of time before the brooms start like bringing them back down because apparently the road is forcing them down. Okay, what I loved, they're all screaming, afraid. Rio is cackling.
Laughing like the Wicked Witch of the West is what I said.
Perfect. That's exactly what she sounded like. It was awesome. And
It
it's
was
just
cool.
for like a brief second, but they're all like, "Oh my god, ah, ah," and she's like,
It fit her personality very well.
and I like Rio. I really do.
Aubrey Plaza is doing a really good job.
Aubrey Plaza and Catherine Hahn, if they don't get any recognition, I will be so irritated. You know what? Patti LuPone too.
Yes.
Very much. Damn. All awards go to like some random thing that no one sees. It's so weird. So they see a house. They go in the house, and what was your immediate thought?
So they jump into this house that's like the 80s, and I was like, man, we're in an 80s film. Like they're wearing their hair different. I like Agatha's hair the most because it's I used to wear my hair like that even though I wasn't in the 80s. I mean, I was born at the end, but I used to wear my hair like that anyway.
Side ponytail stayed around like until early 90s. Side ponytail was a thing. Maybe we should bring that back.
We should, because it was cute, and their outfits were cute. I think all of them looked great, to be honest.
They did a really good job. The house looked 80s, the outfits looked 80s. What kind of confused me though is Rio says it's Agatha's trial. I wonder why it was the 80s for her, because we know Agatha's older than that.
Yeah, they didn't really explain that. I mean, because the 70s part made sense because her mom, Alice's mom, but this one, I mean, what happened to Agatha, and when we find out what happened to Agatha, it didn't happen in the 80s, so I don't know why.
Yeah, I was very confused by that, but we're not really given a reason, but it looked cool, so I guess we'll just be cool with that. So there is a Ouija board. And Lilia makes a really good point. She says it's a blood moon when the veil between the living and the dead is at its thinnest.
Yeah, and who else to commune with the dead than someone who has put so many in the grave, which makes sense why it's Agatha's trial, but the look of it doesn't.
Yeah. And so Teen goes over and he starts reading the rules of the Ouija board. And I thought you would probably find that part funny.
I thought it was cute, and I liked the rules, especially when, well, you if you want to say the rules, you can. But I really liked what one was it? The one where they don't speak over each other because then they start speaking over each other.
Yeah, he gets sassy. He's like, rule one, don't use the Ouija board alone. Rule two, do not speak over each other.
And I like the one of don't taunt the spirits, and they all look at Agatha.
Yep. Don't talk to spirits. They all look at Agatha. Do not ask about death. Always end your session with goodbye. And do not, under any circumstances, remove your hand from the planchette. If you do so, a spirit will be released. And they break like every rule. So you have to talk about the next scene. You have to.
Well, I like how Teen says, "I wonder who is waiting for you," and Jen says, "What trauma is waiting for you?" And I'm like, "Come on, can you stop? Like, you're not perfect either." But so they all sit around the Ouija board, and Agatha says, "Mother, maiden, crone." Which, what does that remind you of?
Oh my God, yeah, it's the seven because everything's connected.
It's interesting how a lot of witchy stuff says the mother, maiden, crone too. It's interesting. Spirits be known. Who is here during this witching hour? And someone is here, but who? And so the board starts moving, or not the board, but like the planchette starts moving, and it spells out Mrs. Hart. And I was like, this has got to be a joke. This has to be a joke because Jen goes, "Hey girl, feeling better?" I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" And then
You
and
gotta
then
love
Alice
Jen.
says, "I know." And then Alice says, "How is your face?" And I'm like, "Are we joking here?" And Lilia says, "No taunting." And then the thing like she takes her, like, forces her hand off. And I'm like, this can't be real. And then Agatha all of a sudden gets possessed. And I'm like, she's faking it. This is fake, right?
Look, Agatha pretending to be Mrs. Hart was pretty damn funny.
That's when I knew it was fake, when she said drinking at noon. Well, and the voice too, but like the drinking at noon part.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. She did a good job with that, and everybody's like, "Come on," because she was just pretending to be possessed by Mrs. Hart, obviously trying to get out of it, which you can't do that.
Rio says that she's just scared, and that's when she stops. So I really like that.
Yeah, and I think Rio says that because Agatha is afraid that a certain person will speak to her.
And it's once you know who it is, it makes sense.
Yeah, it does. But we don't know what happened to her son. But anytime Rio makes like a statement to Agatha and it's specific like that, it always makes me think it's probably has something to do with her son because she doesn't seem to be afraid of a lot of things, but she definitely doesn't want to talk about anything like that, which understandable, and we'll find out more. So we have a really, really creepy possession. It looks so much like The Exorcist that I was like, oh, damn.
That's what I said. I said, like, when did the Exorcist get here?
I mean, she looks just like Linda Blair. It's creepy.
And
And she's up in the ceiling.
I mean, they thought it was fake too, but I was like, no, this is real. This is really real.
Oh, yeah, I knew that was real. Because, like, Agatha will do something, but she's not going to go through the trouble to look possessed and climb up and hang from a ceiling creepy. And so she tries to attack everybody. It's creepy, and I'm just like, who's got her? Like, who could it possibly be? So she's speaking as the person that's possessing her body. Oh, I did want to make a point about this. So Rio says that she hates ghosts. Why do you think that is?
Because they have unfinished business.
Okay, that's what I think too. Yes, I made a note. I was like, why? Why is that statement right there? I think it's because they have unfinished business. Yeah.
Hey, quick thing. So before we realize that Agatha is really possessed this time, um, there's this like loud noise that happens, right? And they're all like, turn it off, and I can't, you know. And so Lilia says that I didn't like this the last time, but only Teen is like, hey, she's being weird again. Nobody else paid attention or and nothing was ever said again. I know that's like how she is, like as a witch. Sometimes she's here for something, like something is getting to her and she's saying it,
Yeah.
and then she forgets about it. But nobody else reacts to it. And I'm like, well, what is she talking about?
Yeah. Everything Lilia says is going to matter at some point. We know this. Or she wouldn't say it. But yeah, you would think, you know what, again, you remember us having the conversation about how Helena predicts the future, but nobody pays attention to her? It's giving that.
Well, I mean, yeah, especially after episode 6, because
Hmm.
of what happens in episode 6. But yeah, okay, so we find out who is in Agatha.
Yeah, Evanora Harkness of the Salemites. It is Agatha's mother, who is a horrid, horrid spirit, awful. And she says, my coven risked everything to kill her, and you fools have willingly joined her. She hates her daughter very much.
Very, very much. She basically says I should have, you know.
Oh yeah, it's pretty damn dark. So they realize that the trial is to leave Agatha there with her
Yep.
mother, I would assume. And Rio is protective of Agatha in this scene. And she's like, no, no, her
Even
mother
though,
can't have her. Like when she says that, when she says her mother can't have her, I was like, look at this. Look
even
at
though she
this.
wanted to cut her throat like 2 seconds ago.
Yep. They have old love
Yes, they
and it's
do.
still there. Yeah. What broke my heart though is she turns to her mom, who's a creepy ghost, and she just says, Mom, why do you still hate me?
She was born evil, I guess, which is sad.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say, what do you think about that? I mean, because the mom is like, you were born evil. I ought to have killed you the moment you left my body. Oh.
I compare it to so you know in the Shadowhunter world, Clary's mom gave birth to a son that looked like evil. He looked evil because his father was poisoning him with demon blood, and it made him evil. And she didn't want him. She even tells him at some point, "I should have just gotten rid of you,"
Mm.
which that just kills me because I feel like I don't know how different he would have been if he was raised nicely with her, raised with her. I don't know how different he'd be, but I feel like he wouldn't be the way he is now. Like, I just don't think that. So that's what I equated it to. And I'm like, that just makes me sad because if she was raised by somebody that wasn't horrible, she might have not turned out the way she was.
Yeah, I don't care who you are or what situation it is. Having a parent say, I should have killed you or I wish you'd never been born or anything like that, that's not something that you forget easily or forget at all,
Nope.
ever. It doesn't matter who you are. But Jen wants to abandon Agatha, not shocking.
No.
Yeah. And Alice is actually sticking up for Agatha again, not shocking. And it's really creepy. The Ouija board's moving. And I think Teen's the only one that's looking at it, isn't he?
Yes.
It spells out Nicholas Scratch.
Yeah,
And
and that's what stops Agatha, and then the trial's done. But Agatha takes, she can't control it, I don't think. Sometimes, I mean, I wonder if she's lying about that, but I don't think she is.
did you catch Agatha hearing a little boy saying, Mama, stop?
Yep.
Okay, I assume we're gonna figure that out at some point, but that was a lot. And the look on her face. So Alice she's a protection witch and she is trying to protect Agatha. And it's really sad because Alice gives all she has and she's dead.
But do you believe that Agatha isn't really trying to do it this time?
Agatha could have stopped herself.
She could have. You're right.
Yeah. But this was kind of hard for me to deal with in my head because, especially with the next scene, Andrea, she could
Mhm.
have stopped and she didn't because she wants her power back so much. It's heartbreaking because, like, it's just like, lots of movies and shows. Like, Agatha's taken her power and her energy. So Alice looks like shriveled up, and like somebody that's been dead for a really long time. And Teen is heartbroken.
Oh yeah, he says she was protecting you and you don't deserve it.
Mm-hmm. And Teen is the only one that remembers that, hello, Alice, she's on the floor. And he's just really upset. And he's like begging anybody to bring her back. And they're like, we can't do anything. This is what I found interesting. So, Agatha, we see her because she's walked out. We assume it's because she feels guilty about Alice. She
Nope.
turns her back and she has a bit of Alice's power, but it's not enough. And it's like, damn it, damn it. And then, so Teen basically calls her out on it. And then Jen basically says, well, yeah, we all want power. That's why we're here. I was like, oh.
That's so she doesn't have a caring bone in her body either, though, in my opinion. So there you go.
No, like we know. I mean, it's sad. Alice was nice, and yeah, Agatha could have stopped it, and she didn't. I mean, Agatha's killed a bunch of witches. Jen just walks by, like, yeah, we're all here for ourselves. We all want power. And then, of course, Lilia follows up and says, death comes for us all, which is, more in the line of, hey, it happens to all of us. It's a slightly comforting line, but Jen's just like, eh.
What's interesting is Teen says that's what it means to be a witch, killing people to serve your own agenda, not for me. And Agatha laughs. Yes.
Okay, Agatha is different
Yes.
after this. This is
Yes.
a shift. This is a huge shift. I guess because she's tasted power, I guess. Or maybe more of her is coming out. I'm not really sure.
Well, but she knows what power is like, so it's like, why would she change all of a sudden? You know what I mean? Like it's
To me, it seems like an addiction. Like it's taken over her again. Like when she had no power and she hadn't had power in a while, that's just Agatha. Now she's had power for just a minute and she's reminded of how good it feels to
Yep.
me. When she says, "You're so much like your mother." That voice she did, that was dark.
Very good acting. And then I was like, oh, of course he's gonna be Wanda's kid.
Yep. He's Wanda's kid.
Yeah.
And he gets angry. His magic appears because I would assume because he's angry. And he knocks them all into that muddy quicksand.
And I was like, where's Rio?
Yeah. Rio just held back at the house or something. I don't know. Was she collecting an Alice maybe? I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know what she was doing.
No, I don't know either. And then, that's pretty much it. It was a
Yeah.
short episode. It was very short.
And I still liked it despite it being but the one that really got me is the leaving the door open for these seven to come in. So it's either just a bad writing choice, or the witches just forgot how to close it back up, or forgot that they needed to do that because it's been so long, or it was on purpose. So
Yeah, I agree. There were some things I didn't understand, which we just talked about, like why was it the 80s? All these questions. I'm going to give it an 8.5 because there's things that weren't explained. And also, it was only like 30 something minutes, and they could have made it longer.
especially with I don't mind an episode with a cliffhanger, but I felt unsatisfied. So I gave it an eight. I give it an 8 actually. So
Yeah, we're on the same page on that. And then we go into the next episode, which is Familiar by Thy Side.
which is funny because Teen was called a familiar by Jen in episode 5, so it makes sense.
Yeah, she belittled him.
I got so mad about that.
I don't like her. I was like, eh. And then you pointed out how her ego is so huge, and now like I'm like, oh my god, everything she says is just a bitchy comment.
You know what's
Okay.
funny? We get upset with that, but we're fine with Agatha killing people.
Oh yeah. You know why? Because Agatha has depth.
She does.
Also, Agatha has a son that we know something tragic happened to.
Yes.
What do we have about Jen? Jen
Nothing.
lost her power and she's obsessed with getting her power back. That's all we got.
Yeah. And then I really liked this episode more than last episode. I will tell you my rating at the end, but it's Teen's backstory, and I was so excited for that.
Oh man, and what a backstory.
Yes.
Well, we start off, he is having a bar mitzvah with his parents who seem incredibly sweet. The mom is insanely familiar to me, and I meant to look it up. I know her from something, and I can't recall what it is.
Yeah, she looks familiar to me too. But yes, I love her. I love his parents. I love that we have a name finally, and his name is William.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and he has a party afterwards, which everybody has everybody's there. There's so many people there. He has a lot of friends and maybe it's probably mostly family, but it was really cool.
Oh yeah, he comes from great parents. They're having this party afterwards, and they even have a palm reader in a tent. And who is it?
Lilia.
It's Lilia. This was really cool. So he goes in to get his palm read, as anybody would. That's just very tempting. And so she says, "Give me your right hand." And she's kind of staring at it. And she's like, "Your lifeline is broken in two." And you know what's kind of funny? So obviously I look at my hand. So is mine. I was like, oh, okay.
Ooh.
Yeah, on my right hand, it's broken in two. Yeah, that's great. Anyway, so I was paying a lot of attention. And she says she could tell he's freaked out. And she's like, it can mean many things. It often represents personal growth and important life changes. A new you, I wouldn't worry. And she says, the tower reversed, but she doesn't remember saying it.
That's a tarot card, I think, right? So I wonder if that's a future thing.
She has a little square, kind of looks like a Scrabble tile, and she draws like a symbol on it, and she puts it in his pocket of the jacket that he left in her tent. And then she leaves the tent and gives the jacket to somebody that's at the party, and she's like, hey, one of the kids left this in my tent, but she doesn't remember who. So the whole time she drew on the tile little piece of wood and put it in his pocket, like she was in that trance state. You know, something's guiding her, and then once she gets out of it, she doesn't remember.
Yeah, and I like that. I thought that was really cool. Okay, so the tower reversed, it can indicate a reluctance to accept change or personal transformation. It can also mean that someone is holding on to old beliefs even when they know they are no longer useful. So they're driving home, and because they have to leave because something's happening in Westview, which is, I believe, what Wanda does, right?
All that red stuff, that's Wanda.
I'm sorry, I have not watched WandaVision, but I just assumed that was what was going on.
This will help. What they're seeing, because the mom is looking at it and the parents are like, is it shrinking? Okay, so that day that William has his bar mitzvah is the day that Wanda lets the hex go and frees everybody. So it is shrinking. So this is the moment in WandaVision where she puts her sons to bed and tells them goodnight. And then she goes to Vision and tells him goodbye. And then they're all gone.
Wow.
It's incredibly, incredibly sad. Like her children are gone. Her husband is gone. And she is completely alone. That is what's occurring while William is in the car with his parents.
Yeah, and what's interesting is right before that, like before they see the red thing in the distance, on the side, they're playing, like, Wanda's on the radio at some point. I was just like, this is interesting. Um, and then they get so distracted that they get into a car accident, and I was so
Yeah.
shocked by that. I was so shocked by that.
Whew, man, that accident shook me. Obviously, it's this huge red thing in the sky. You're going to look at it. And the mom looks at it for just a second. Then there's an incoming car. So she swerves, goes off the road, and they hit a tree really hard. The dad wakes up, and then the mom wakes up. And then they're freaking out. And they're like, William, William. And he's not moving.
I mean, I knew he wasn't dead, but like it freaked me out because I was like, you're invested in a character and they're injured, so you're just like, oh,
And here's the creepy part.
yep,
He is dead. He's
yeah,
dead. William is dead because you figure things out. He's dead for just a short period of time because I think we can hear his heartbeat, I think is what it was. And it's slowing down. And then you're like, oh my God, what's going on? Because we know he's alive in current time. He takes a breath and he screams for Tommy.
mm-hmm.
So that means the moment that the two boys of Wanda's were erased out of existence, William died and Billy entered his body.
And that makes me sad because not that I have any issue with Billy, I'm sad for William because he was interesting.
He was interesting, but I would assume it's because he was the closest empty body near. So, and of course that means that Wanda's other son went somewhere.
Yeah, and I'm
But
curious where he is.
true. I guess the nearest, what do they call it? Empty vessel. So I guess it's that.
Did you notice that when the cops came, one of them was Alice?
Yes. That was trippy. And she's in full cop mode. Is that
Oh,
before she couldn't like keep a job, I guess?
yeah, before she couldn't, but I'm just curious, like, I know it's been like, because they do like a time jump or whatever in the story, but I'm curious, like, I get why Lilia doesn't remember him, but how come Alice doesn't?
I don't know. I really don't. I think that's one of those things we're not going to get answered too. So they go to the hospital, obviously, and the mom has noticed that he's different. This is the moment that I put it all together in my notes, and I actually wrote, oh my God, because I was like, William died. He's different because he's now got the soul of Wanda's son. And Wanda put her sons to bed before she let Westview go.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Billy. And Billy has magical abilities and he's very confused, which you can imagine. And he can hear his parents' thoughts, but it is very overwhelming for him. And he doesn't remember any of William's life. None of that carried over. None of it. So they're freaking out because he has amnesia, which he really doesn't. But I mean, obviously it would seem like that. And this is what I was wondering. Wanda's kids are pretty young. So that means that when Billy woke up, he woke up into the body of what, a 15-year-old? Is bar mitzvah 15? Yeah, I think it's 15. So if I had to guess the age of him before, I don't know, 7 or something. So he got put in a body older than him.
Yes, and then when they go to the house, it's also telling, like, that's definitely not William. Now that I'm thinking about it, because I didn't even think about him dying, is the dog barking at him.
Yeah, the dog knows.
That's very telling because dogs are very intelligent.
Yeah, I thought that was a really cool little ad. And then there's a big mirror right when you walk in the house, and he looks in that mirror, and you can tell it is jarring
Yes.
because he doesn't look like himself. And he's also in a body that is older, which I don't think that's going to get addressed, but it should have. So his parents are freaking out. They're worrying that he may not ever get his memories back. And he just hears both of them. And it's just so overwhelming to him. So he tries to calm down and he's just like, I'm going to go up to my room. And, then after that, we can have dinner. He goes up to his room and he's literally practicing. He says, My name is William Kaplan. My name is William Kaplan. Like, can you imagine?
I can't imagine. He tried. He tried to, you know, but then they do the time jump.
Yep. Then it says 3 years later. And Billy, I guess he's Billy now or teen, either one. He's with his boyfriend and he still has the sigil from Lilia.
And he knew it was a
And
sigil.
yeah, he did. So I guess that means he's been doing research, I would assume.
Yeah.
And he kisses his boyfriend and he can hear his boyfriend's thoughts.
Yeah, his boyfriend's in love with him. I like Eddie. I think he's sweet.
Very. His boyfriend is very sweet. And his boyfriend has these strong thoughts. He's nervous because he wants to tell Billy that he loves him and he doesn't know if he should say it or not. And it's cute because Billy can actually hear it. He kind of explains to him, like, hey, I'm William, but I'm not William. And Eddie doesn't freak out. I was like, oh, okay, well, that's some relationship goals. Because I mean, somebody tells you, hey, I actually died in that car wreck. I'm somebody else, so I just wanted to let you know. And Eddie's like, oh, okay,
Well, yeah, and then he brings him to his house and shows him all this stuff, right? Like he tells him his like all this research that he's been doing, and it's giving me Emma Carstairs. I had to write that because I'm like, when Emma's parents died and she didn't know what happened or why, she had like a whole closet full of stuff like newspaper clippings, like TV posts, just internet searches, like just all this kind of stuff, trying to figure out why her parents died, who did it, all that kind of stuff. I know this isn't the same, but this is like him. You can connect this to anything really, but like he is obsessed and wants to know who he is, right? And like what happened. I mean, he knows
yep,
who he is, but he wants to, know everything.
yeah. Which I would be obsessed like that too. Talk about your boy that I did not know we were gonna see.
Right. So they meet this guy off of Reddit, which I thought was funny. I was like, oh, Reddit mentioned, yay.
Yep.
So not dangerous at all. Like you should not. I mean, Eddie goes with, right, and they go to
Mm-hmm.
this like parking garage that seems kind of empty. I mean, there's cars in there, but it's not busy. And this guy in a trench coat comes out, and first he blocks off the camera, and I'm like, oh god. And then Eddie's just like, yeah, that's not dangerous. Like a guy in a trench coat walking in the shadows, he's not dangerous at all. He's probably, and I'm just like, no, he's probably a serial killer. You never know. So they go and talk to him, and I forget the names. I didn't write it down what their usernames were, but his was Bonerific something. I thought that was funny.
His freaking name was Bonerific 69.
Yeah, Bonerific 69. There you go.
At first I didn't know it was Evan Peters. I didn't.
I did right away.
Man, it took me a second because he looks like insanely disheveled. Like they did a good job.
I'm obsessed with that man. I know his mouth, I know his chin, I know his eyes. Anyway, yeah. So he turns around and it's Evan Peters, but he's not playing Quicksilver because that's what I originally thought. I was like Quicksilver, but it's not.
Yeah.
But the way I yelled at the screen, it still got me excited. It still gets fans excited because I remember some people. I after watching this episode, I looked it up, and a lot of people were excited. So,
Oh yeah, everybody loves Evan Peters, and if you don't, then I'll have beef with you because he's fantastic. So Agatha used him in WandaVision.
yes.
She just basically shows up at his house, takes over, makes him her husband, and he is sent in as Quicksilver to get close to Wanda because Agatha's trying to figure out how she's done all this stuff with her magic. And that's what he's basically describing. He's like, my life got hijacked. And
And
he's not okay.
no, I mean he checks William for a wire, and like he's clearly. I mean he's like you couldn't move or talk or do anything. and I loved it.
It was really good, and he tells them enough that Billy knows that Agatha is still in Westview, so he's got a lead. And that's basically the whole point of that interaction is he finds out, oh, Agatha's still in Westview.
I like how he said Wanda had the whole town acting out this weird, sad sitcom plot.
Oh man, like that's when you really realize how many people were damaged because they were fully aware. They just couldn't, they didn't have free thought and they couldn't do what they wanted to do. Like, ugh.
And he said it was like watching yourself on TV inside your own head, but you didn't turn it off, or you couldn't turn it off.
Yeah. I think that is on purpose just to let you know, like, yeah, WandaVision was cute, but all those people that were interacting with them, yeah, they knew what they were doing, but couldn't stop it. So after that, he immediately gets on the internet and he wants to figure out anything he can about Agatha. And did you find it interesting what he's listening to?
Yes, he's listening to Lorna's on the road, or the Witch's Road. Sorry, there we go.
Yep. It's The Witch's Road and it's Alice's mom singing it.
Yep.
And it was a record and it looked really cool actually.
I wanted to say really quick, there was a mention of Vision, and Sword used Visions for parts, and like I thought that was interesting. I just wanted to say that they're like they're a department, or they're a subdivision of Shield. I didn't know that, so I thought that was cool.
Yeah. If they're, I mean, to them, Vision was just something they possessed and they dismantled him. And so Billy knows that his dad's dismantled and his mom's dead.
It just makes me really sad for Vision because he's not just parts, but you know.
That's how they treated him. And at this point, you know, nobody would have thought that he would ever be reassembled. So it's pretty heartbreaking. Wanda's got a sad ass life, man. I'm
Yeah.
just saying.
Well, it also says that they deal with extraterrestrial threats for the world. So he's not. I mean, maybe they just thought he was. I don't know. I just felt really sad about that.
Well, what they did is they disassembled him and then reassembled him, which I would assume is to make him stronger because he becomes white vision and he's kind of bigger. So, but he's not the same. So they disassembled him to remake him and he has no emotion.
Yeah, that's sad.
Yeah. It's bleak.
But yeah, so he does. So Billy does some research on Agatha. You know, finds out about Evanora Harkness, the Coven, the children escaped, and then there was an old picture of Agatha that he saw, like really old. And then like it goes to Zeppelin explosion kills 32. There's a picture of Agatha there. There's does 1972 surveillance photo of Dolly Parton show the real Jolene? And there's Agatha.
That was hilarious. I mean, it's a picture of Dolly Parton slapping Agatha. It says like she's the actual Jolene the song was written about. That was hilarious.
Did you notice the comments on the picture? It said, "I'd pay good money to get slapped by Dolly."
Yep. Oh, that was good. That was really good. And then in the same comments, somebody's like, "Hey, check out my what is it? Is it Brujapedia?"
Yeah, that's witch. That means witch in Spanish.
Ah, so it's like a Wikipedia.
Yeah, and Agatha's on there, and it says that she's the only known survivor of the Witch's Road.
Yep. And it also says she murdered her entire coven. She possesses succubus powers. Her nickname is Witch Killer, and she's the only known survivor of the Witch's Road.
Yep.
And Billy's listening to The Witch's Road, where the lyrics say you can find what you're looking for. And so now we know that's the whole reason that he goes to see Agnes, is because he wants to find Tommy.
Yeah, and we get a little peek at his spell book, which I liked because it looked really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and because I thought it was just a journal, but it's actually like a book of spells. There's a release spell, which requires an important personal item from the person that you want to release. So he's trying to obviously release Agatha from her spell. And that's why he goes to Nick's bedroom and takes something personal.
Yep. Now we understand why. And it's pretty funny because we get to see Agnes in her full crime story delusion. And before he goes in the house, this really cracked me up. This is when she's talking to Rio in the first episode, and she says, uh, has the suspect been seen in the last 24 hours? And she says, only on TikTok. And I just really found that funny. I was like, man, imagine that. TikTok being referenced in the show we're covering on our podcast. I don't know. That was a surreal moment. By the way, you should follow us on social media.
Follow your favorite podcasters on all social media at Southern Mother of Dragons and at the Princess of Dragonstone.
But I also like that they mentioned Reddit too, which I never hear Reddit anywhere in like movies or TV shows. So I was like, oh my god, TikTok and Reddit, thank you, because I'm on both of those. So we're both on both of those. So
Oh yeah, that's really funny to me. Um, since you're the one that pointed out all the stuff about her acting like she's this investigator, and in reality, she's just in her house. So talk about the next scene.
well, first she catches him. But by the way, he wasn't hit by a car. He was hit with a car door. That
Yeah,
got me. That tripped me up so bad. I was like,
yeah.
wait, what? And when she's running after him, she's like, stop. And he says, I'll stop if you stop. Like, it was just so funny. And then she takes him into the house, right? And she puts down a rope. She puts down duct tape
Yep.
and a accordion folder. And I'm sorry, that is a house spray, or sorry, not house, hose spray nozzle thing.
Instead of a gun, it was a damn nozzle from a garden hose.
Oh, oh, Wanda, you did some number on this woman.
Damn.
Oh, and she's wearing the Boner family reunion shirt. I love that. It says pitch a tent. It says pitch a tent on it.
I couldn't believe it said pitch a tent. Okay, now why is that shirt not merch?
I would buy it. I want it.
Same. That was a huge mistake to not make that an available shirt to purchase. I bet they will later, though. So we go to present time, and Agatha somehow drags herself out of the mud. I don't know how she does it, to be honest with you. Billy destroys the sigil. He says that power doesn't interest him, and Agatha basically says that she knew who he was the first time they met. And she's being creepy when she talks to him like this.
Yeah, because she's like, well, what does Billy want? And does Billy want his mom? No, she picked the town over you kids, so you wouldn't want her. What about Robo Papa? Oh, no. But the fact that she called him Robo Papa, I was like, wow, this is anyway.
She's brutal. She's brutal in this.
Yes, and then she's like, oh no, you want Tommy, and yeah, it was just a lot for
It was
her.
a lot. And Agatha basically says, you and your mother have the same tell. The tell is the power comes out when they're angry.
I don't know how I feel about him being Billy Maximoff, just because I have issues with the Scarlet Witch. I do. I know. I maybe look like as a hypocrite because I
No.
love Agatha. I mean, I didn't particularly I liked this scene because it was really good acting and it was dark. I can't really defend her here. I'm not going to. I don't want to make her worse. That's how I always am with people. But I really liked her relationship with Teen, and I feel like that's just going to be gone now. And I don't know how I feel about that.
It's definitely changed because she does kind of switch gears and tells him, you know, do not feel guilty about your talent. And she tells him, don't feel guilty about what happened to you that was an empty vessel and you're a witch. That's what just had to be done. So she does give him some advice, but it comes across as her justifying things that she's done.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if, okay, even though Teen is gone, even though, I mean, well, his version that he was being is gone, maybe Billy and her can still have a relationship somewhere, you know, because I mean, I know he tells her that he doesn't need her anymore, but he does, you know, I think he does. And I think that could further their relationship if they end up hating each other. I don't know how I'll feel.
I don't think they're going to end up hating each other because this is what I think. I think Agatha is going to help Billy because obviously Billy wants to find Tommy. And I think that's going to help her work through her grief about her son, I think.
Yeah. And then again, I was wondering where Rio is. And are they just going to leave Jen and Lilia in the mud or what?
Yeah, I mean, they're not even stressed about it. I guess they just assume everyone's dead.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, but I mean, nobody's like even looking. They're just like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, they're gone. But I did find it interesting though that Billy says that he can sense Tommy, but he can't find him.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Well, Tommy, his power is like Quicksilver. He's fast. So that's going to be really difficult to hide. So wherever Tommy went, like, I don't know how they're going to explain, like, oh, by the way, this kid can go so fast you don't see him. So that'll be interesting. There was a lot in this episode. It was a lot. I'm going to give it 9 out of 10. The acting was great.
I gave it a 10 because it was funny. I really liked the boner shirt. And of course Evan Peters is always a pleasant surprise to have in something, and I always love seeing him. So I was excited. Even if he wasn't Quicksilver, he could be like a variant of him. That's fine.
Yeah, that it's very complicated, but yeah, anytime Evan Peters shows up, like, yeah, I love him too. I mean, ever since season 1 of American Horror Story. So,
And when I'm obsessed with somebody like Matt Smith, like, you know, when I watched the one of the trailers for House of the Dragon, I know his hands. I know his hands anywhere. I saw a picture today with his hands in it. I'm like, that's Matt. I know. I just know.
she's not lying. She can tell.
And so when I saw Evan, I knew before he even turned around. I didn't, because his voice changes in a lot of stuff, so I couldn't tell by voice, but until he talked more. But like just the shape of his head, yeah, I know, I'm obsessed.
That's totally fine. The show is getting more emotional, definitely. So I have a feeling our next podcast will reflect that. But I'm very excited, and I love the show. I do.
Me too. It's really good.
All right, everybody. We will see you next Monday, and we will be talking about the end of Agatha. So
Yeah.
I have a feeling that's going to be a lot. It'll be good, though.
Yes.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
As always, it's Amanda here to say thank you to all of our listeners and to ask that if you like this week's episode, leave us an honest rating. And if you'd like to continue the discussion, please feel free to comment on our post over at our Girls Nerd Out podcast account on Instagram. If you're interested in buying any of our merch to support the podcast and so that we can continue to release weekly episodes, then check it out over at girlsnerdoutpodcast.com. Our podcast logo was designed by Chairman Bilal over on Fiverr. Our podcast merch was put together by me, myself, and I at Southern Mother of Dragons on all social media. If you're interested in my personal merch, check it out at southernmotherofdragons.com. And the designs for that merch were put together by Ryuchi Studios on Etsy after an in-depth back and forth discussion with me to find the perfect merch for me and my loyal supporters. The music playing while I tell you about all the ways you can support us and the production of the podcast is Kawaii Girl by Pumpkin Pie. Thanks for listening.
Hey, this is Andrea.
And this is Amanda.
And you just listened to
Girls Nerd Out.